Hi everyone, thanks for joining me for I'm from 73. I'm Allison and Ari's going to be joining me today momentarily. I am reading The Vertical Interrogation of Strangers. That's one of the things I'm reading by Banu Kapil. And that's another recommendation from Ross Gay. He had so many good recommendations in Inciting Joy, and so I've kind of been looking through those. I've also been reading a lot of comics because I'm writing a piece on Black Widow right now because she is. I've been reading and rereading a lot of Black Widow. I don't know if any of you are comics readers. I am. And I enjoy them. Sometimes my brain can't process. Hello!
Hi, hi.
Hi! That's a beautiful view out your window.
No, I know. It's very windy right now, so it's
Yes.
kind of,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. I'm in Los Angeles, so it's
Oh, same
yeah,
with you
yeah,
then.
yeah. It's really like last night. It kind of just rolled in, and things are flying through the air, and it feels like winter.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I have a hummingbird nest outside of my window, and it's just going like,
I
and
know.
I'm like, all night I was in my sleep. I was like, oh, I'm so worried about them.
I would too. I would be too. But I think they're pretty. They know what to do, right? I always feel like that with. I try to just breathe that in with nature. Like they know how to. They know how to deal with things that we're sort of more have a harder time with.
Exactly.
They're, you know, like they're not worried about tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. They're just here now. And I think that
Yeah, yeah,
that
for sure.
helps. Um, so how are you? If you want to start with your poem, go for it. But I also would love to hear about all your advocacy and your upcoming TED Talk. And you have a lot of wonderful things going on.
Uh, sure, yeah. The advocacy that I'm focusing on right now is activism, which is basically activism channeled through dance, which is a sustainable type of activism because I've been in the activist world for a long time and burnout is real. People getting overwhelmed and ill and all the other terrible things that could happen because we just don't have the bandwidth to deal with the trauma
Yeah.
that it encompasses. So dancing is good for mitigating effects of trauma. It's good for us, for our overall well-being. And while we're dancing, we can bring attention to the plight of Iranians who are not allowed to dance, who dancing is illegal in Iran. So people are posting a video of themselves dancing in groups, solo, with all sorts of choreographies, and that gets uploaded into social media as a way of support for Iranians. And the Iranians, they call me and or message me, and they're in tears because of the support that they feel that they're receiving from the world.
That's so beautiful. Because I think we can oftentimes feel like, or I'll speak for myself, I can sometimes feel like what I'm doing just feels like not enough, and I think we all struggle with that when we see the atrocities that are going on here and that are going on other places. How do we do enough? And I think sometimes it paralyzes us and we don't do anything.
Exactly, yeah. So the point is to just move our bodies as a way of releasing that weird notion that there is such a thing as enough, and just dance. It's good for you.
Yeah,
Even if it is good for people enough, that's something that is also important.
I agree. And I was reading your piece about dancing and community, and that's something because I dance on my own quite a bit because I do also love to dance and have danced throughout my life, and I have not gotten back into it since the pandemic. I still have a little anxiety about crowds, and I just haven't. And it was a reminder that it is important to do these things in community, and I'm going to.
I'd love to see your video, either solo or in community. And you're so absolutely right. In community, there's something that it amplifies all the healing, all the benefits when you do it with other people. Yeah.
Yeah, I love your videos with people, immigrants at the border, like all of the, especially the children. It's just so, it's profound. It's really something. So.
Every time I bring volunteers, they leave in tears because it's such a transformative experience all around to share something so simple yet so profound with your fellow human beings.
Yeah, and it doesn't take language. I think
it doesn't take language. I know. If it did, I would be out of business.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is something we all share regardless of our cultural background. Regardless of the form the dance takes, we all share dance.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for sharing that and all that you do. And you do have a TED Talk coming up, correct?
Yeah, it's along the same lines of one way that there's just so much, there's so many oppressive forces in our lives that we don't realize. We have an inner morality police. In Iran, actual morality police crack down on protesters and tell them they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't laugh, they can't sing, they can't dance. And we also have so much of that happening. So we feel self-conscious of our bodies, we're afraid of other people's judgments. So we don't really partake in very free, abundant, and available goodness and healthy pleasures that are out there. Mm-hmm. And so that's one part of it. And then the other part is the negativity bias that we keep focusing on bad news rather than, and there's a reason for that. There's a science behind that, how we evolved the negativity bias tendency, but how we can also use that neuroplasticity of our neurons and our neural structure that can reorganize itself very easily to our advantage and focus on the good things rather than the terrible things that keep our attention fixed.
I loved in the article about that, talking about the negativity bias, the doctor saying it used to be a feature and now it's a flaw. I thought that was really powerful because I think I definitely struggled with that and still do, but at least I'm aware of it, which is the first step. But thinking like, oh, if I think about all the negative things that are possible, I'm somehow protecting myself from them, which is not true. But, we kind of get in our own heads and think, oh, I'm doing something here, worrying, no.
Yeah, worrying is a caloric activity, right? It's a workout.
Yeah, and you tend to spiral. It's not like there's an end point. Like, oh, I'm done worrying. Now I can move on. It's a spiraling activity.
No, just things like to feed on each other. There's always a positive feedback. The more you do something, the more you do it. So, so we can do the opposite too. We can savor. We can really enjoy this cup of tea and feel the texture in our hand and the aroma and everything that it encompasses.
I agree, and it's also not pointless or meaningless. I just read Ross Gay's Inciting Joy, which if you haven't read, you would probably love, and he talks about how important joy is and how he has received feedback that it's not significant enough, it's not important enough. Why isn't he focusing on things that are more important? And he's said, I think joy is where it's at. And
it is. And I mean, if you look at the protesters in Iran that are literally risking their lives and freedom to have joy, then it doesn't seem as frivolous to the person who has everything in our part of the world, and it's just like, I don't need that. We absolutely do. It's our birthright. It's one thing that we're entitled to. I think so much of entitlement in the world is because we're not entitled to what we should be entitled to, which is joy, our bodily autonomy, feeling really having this kind of comfort and I don't want to even say ownership. I don't like the language of
Yeah.
dominance.
Yeah.
But just being entitled to our joy, to our bodies, how they move, how they express themselves, how we use our language and such. If we did that, we wouldn't be feeling so entitled to power and status and all the other things that don't really fulfill us in a deep, meaningful way.
I agree. The power and materialistic things, it's so fleeting. Whatever the
Mm,
thing is that, it's like there's a lot of science, and I'm sure you're aware of it, where it's like you get the thing and immediately you want the next thing
yeah.
because the things don't fill you up,
Right.
but the experiences and the sensations of joy and, like you say, autonomy, like just being, yeah, having your own space to be who you want to be and not having
Mm-hmm.
someone tell you what that looks like. There's really nothing better than that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of have enough of a relationship with yourself to know where you're coming from, what is good for you at this moment. And the self is a moving target, and so it's not like we always are going to be the same, but just always constantly checking in and allowing for that impermanence to come and go. And the same with joy. Joy is not meant to be
Right.
here always, even if you have like the sweetest cake, it's just gonna spoil if you just leave it. It needs to be consumed, processed, integrated, and then move on. Yeah, let's have some sadness now, or whatever else is is at the moment important.
Yeah. Yeah. And he talks about that in the book too. Like if you're not experiencing sadness, who are you? You're either not in relationship with people in the world, or you're you're kind of a sociopath. Like you're not, like, sadness is part of life too. And the less that we feel shame around that,
Mm,
the better. Like it is just, it's part of life. These are
it is.
all parts of life.
Yeah, all states of being are sacred and equally sacred, and we can honor them as our guests.
That's beautiful. Um, all right. Well, I could talk about this all day, but I would love to hear your poem. I've read it, and it's such a celebration of Iran, so, and your childhood.
Mm, thank you. Yeah. I am from black tea in tall estacons, from orange blossom water and pistachio ice cream. I'm from resident spiders and their shivering webs on all corners of my room. I'm from Mohammadi roses, the mad willow's tresses swaying over the hose fountain and the dancing goldfish, of glowworms and nighttime constellations they painted on the garden ground. I'm from spirited backgammon games and spades played in secret. From Afsar and Ghulam Hussein. From jokes when things got hard and violence when things got harder. From left-handedness is an ugly trait and wearing shorts isn't appropriate for a girl. The land of forced Islam that made games and dancing forbidden. The laws that cut girls' rights in half and cut my hair, made me pretend to be a boy. I'm from Shiraz, where Persepolis once reigned over the world. Kalam polo with crispy rice crust from Shirazi salad. From the calm of my father's turning his rosary beads during bombing. From the bottom of my sister's backpack where she hid a Kit Kat bar just for me. The musty smell of old contraband books on the wall-sized bookcase, the light cutting through stained glass windows, coloring the Persian rug. my grandmother's hookah, the samovar, the eraser collection, the framed photos brimming with memories, and all else that wouldn't fit in a small suitcase when you escape, when home is no longer home.
Thank you. That was very powerful. What was it like for you to, when you sent it to me, you said, here's the Mad Lib. What was it like for you to work on, I mean, you write really beautifully about how poetry is a big part of being Persian and that it's a big part of your life. What was it like for you approaching this poem?
It was very strange to me. I was intrigued by it, but then there was some resistance to it too. I was like, oh, I have to like dredge up all this stuff, you know, from who knows where. So it requires some time and some space to sit with it and see what comes forth. And then when I did start getting into it, it was very meditative, and it was also cathartic at points. I was crying at other points. So it was overall a very rich experience.
I'm glad that it was ultimately a positive. I appreciate you taking the journey. I thought it was so evocative, and you talk about obviously the war, but also all of the beauty and the pieces that no longer exist and were left behind. And I just it's bittersweet. So I feel like I want to say, you know, yes, it's a celebration of Iran, and it's also this bittersweet feeling of that it doesn't exist anymore. And the poem, I felt like, really embodies that feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like I mean I can write prose where it's very light and very fun, and there is nothing of suffering and no hint of suffering in it. But when I write a poem, it seems like it always comes. There has to be this dance between suffering and joy in it, and yeah, it's just that it's poem is that kind of a medicine that you take the sweet with the bitter.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I have sat down with the intention of writing a happy poem, and it doesn't work out. I really do try. Like, oh, I'm just gonna try to just kind of harvest these memories.
Yeah.
And speaking, you mentioned it in your poem, and then the photograph you shared, you have your hair cut short. So was that when you were, you know, looking like a boy so that you could have more freedom to move about?
Yeah, my best friend was a boy, and he was still enjoying all the freedoms as before the revolution. And here I had to cover my body and my hair and blend into the background as my civil liberties were being stripped away. Even as a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, I was very much aware of my rights being taken away as an assault on my bodily autonomy, as an assault to my sense of self, who wanted to be wild and free and climb trees and all the ride bicycles in public, things that are just so normal here and we couldn't do as girls in Iran anymore. So I cut my hair. I was already kind of a tomboy to begin with, but I really went into that role, and I just cut my hair really short and pretended to be a boy so I could just do all the things that we that was forbidden.
That reminds me of your book, A Girl Called Rumi. In your book, the main character goes through a lot of those same things and has a boy best friend. And by the way, beautiful book if you haven't read it, everyone. It's really, speaking of a love letter and the bittersweet of it doesn't just live in the darkness, you know, and I think that's such an accomplishment when you're handling some, or writing or talking about something that is devastating.
Thank you for saying that. And that was really my intention
I
because
could tell.
I do read books that are just really dark from
Yeah.
beginning to end. And I just wanted to give a little gift to the reader that said, take some of that sweetness, this beauty, this joy to this is meant that, again, the joy and the beauty is meant to increase our capacity so we can be with the suffering. So I wanted to definitely include that in my writing too.
Well, you did, and I could feel that intention. And I also think we all would like to be appreciated for the different facets of our experience and our personality. You know, we don't want to just be one thing, and we don't want the world to see us one way. We're many things. And I thought your book and I think the work you do speaks to that too. Like, you speak very openly about fleeing and having to rebuild your life, but that's not. I feel like you really strike this beautiful balance of, this has been my experience, and also this is my experience now. And I really appreciate it. I think you're doing amazing things.
Thank you so much. Yeah, one of the beauties of about being human is just keep developing our sense of empathy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just for other people. I think when we have an increased sense of empathy, we are able to contain more. And it's a little bit like a virtual reality machine right within ourselves, that we can put ourselves in all these people's position and lives and live so many different lives that otherwise we wouldn't be able to. So it really expands our world. And, you know, from a neuroscience perspective, empathy and emotional granularity, all of those things are really good for overall well-being as well.
I would agree from my experiences in life. The more empathy. Also, I think when you have empathy for others, at least for me, I have a lot more empathy for myself
Thank
in my
you.
experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So
we
I did the
include
best I could.
ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I don't know if it's being human or being a woman or what it is, but I definitely am better at turning those things outward. So I have to start outward, and then I can let it sink in
Mm,
inward.
beautiful. Yeah, however you can get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's like, okay, so that was tough for them. Oh wait, what about me? I had some things. So yeah, empathy. And I think literature is a big part of that for
It's
me. And
huge. It's huge. Yeah, fiction. Fiction is the path for that. And we evolved as soon as language evolved, storytelling evolved. So that's the way that we're meant to live. We're always telling ourselves a story.
yeah,
So let's make that story as beautiful as possible.
that's lovely. So do you have any other last thoughts before we wrap up? I feel like we've covered a lot of great territory, but do you have any other last thoughts?
Uh, I no, I just appreciate you so much for taking this time and
That
speaking
was
with
my
me.
my pleasure.
And this is such a cool project, and I hope it gets a lot of attention.
Yeah, it's good. Like, we started off the cover. This is a good come back to the beginning. It's something that's sustainable for me. Whether it gets attention or not, it's something I love doing. And
Mm,
I got so much better at that over the pandemic, realizing that doing things that are sustainable is
mm,
essential, because burnout is
mm,
real
mhm.
and expectations can be debilitating. So if I can separate expectations from my day-to-day reality, it helps a lot.
That, that is so wise, so wise. Kudos to you for coming to that
It's
realization.
a process, but it's like, oh, okay, if I just do things that truly bring me joy, separate from what I hope it gives me someday, I'm much happier on a day-to-day
Mhm,
basis. So,
mhm.
and I really appreciate you joining me, and I know it took us a minute to find time, so I'm glad. Thank you for your flexibility, and I knew it would be a wonderful conversation, knowing you as I do on social media and all the things you're doing in the world. And I just am thrilled we got to talk and then hear your poem. And I'm excited to see where you're writing and your activism leads, because it's powerful and joyful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I wish you a wonderful rest of the day with all the wind and
You too. I'm going to get outside for sure and just kind of breathe it in. So I'm going to go down to the ocean, I think. So
beautiful.
yeah.
All
Well,
right.
thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
You as well. Bye bye.